I have a confession to make. A dark secret that needs to get out. It's very difficult for me to make this video, but I think you loyal subscribers deserve to know the truth. I like Sonic the Hedgehog. I know there have been allegations about my Sonic fanhood circulating online for years now, and I'm ashamed to admit, but they're 100% credible, and I am deeply, deeply sorry.
It's a supersonic flight, gotta keep it going. Sonic boom, sonic boom, sonic boom. It's running fast.
Yes, you heard me right. I, Max Crimson Ender, am in fact a Sonic the Hedgehog fan. Have been for most of my life. Sonic and I have a long and storied history together. I just haven't been too public about it until now. Most people know me as a Nintendo, Minecraft, and Pokemon kind of guy, so consider this a coming out video. I am a Sonic fan. I got my start with the Sonic franchise when my aunt from Alabama sent me and my brother a copy of Sonic Unleashed on the Wii for Christmas in 2008, and I played the crap out of that game. Say what you want about Sonic Unleashed or its Wii port, that it's not very good, but as a 5-year-old, I loved it! In fairness, I was just a little baby boy and didn't know any better. I had yet to play what could be considered a quote-unquote good Sonic game before, so I had no frame of reference. If you played Sonic Unleashed at age 5 without ever playing any other Sonic game before, I bet you'd think it was awesome too. The second Sonic game I ever played was Sonic X for the Leapster. It's a pretty obscure game. I don't see many people talking about it online, and probably for good reason. It was just a shitty math game meant for preschoolers. I bet even Coco the Gorilla wouldn't have any trouble getting through this game. That's just how basic it was. I don't even remember how I ended up getting my hands on that game anyway. It just kind of showed up at my house one day with no flair or fanfare. From then on, I would dabble in some of the classic Genesis games through the Sonic Classics collection on the DS, never getting too far in any of them because, mind you, I was just a stupid kid who somehow got enjoyment out of Sonic X on Leapster. Now, when I tell you I was obsessed with Sonic, I really meant it. Borderlining on unhealthy. In the latter half of the 1980s, when New Coke, trickle-down economics, and glasnost were all the rage, the video game market was dominated by Nintendo and their portly Italian cash cow Mario. Sega tried to throw their hat in the ring with the Master System, headlined by Alex Kidd, but outside of some very dedicated support in places like Brazil and parts of Europe, it just couldn't hold a candle to the masterpiece after masterpiece Nintendo was churning out on NES. I wonder why. I mean, when is the last time you've heard of Alex Kidd? Unless you played Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, grew up in 1980s Brazil, or are just unhealthily interested in obscure Sega games, might I recommend seeking therapy, or just plain lying, you haven't. But the folks over at Sega had one last ace up their sleeve. A blue hedgehog named Sonic. Sonic was cool, he was edgy, he was fast, and had a 1990s cool guy attitude, because the 1990s were just that obnoxious. At the very least, he was cooler than Mario. That overweight spaghetti-slurping plumber had nothing on the blue blur. 2021 marks 30 years since Sonic the Hedgehog first sped onto the gaming scene in June 1991. Since the beginning of the franchise, Sonic has gone through a number of high highs and incredibly low lows. Maybe more lows when you really break it down. One take I've heard echoed across the various dark and decrepit corners of the internet is that
Sonic was never good.
That is absolute bullshit. The problem is Sonic Team does not know how to make good video games. Well, at least not consistently. In the last 2 decades, we've only had 2 modern Sonic games generally regarded as quality titles. 2010 Sonic Colors and 2011 Sonic Generations. After Sonic Adventure 2's release in 2001, the quality of the series saw a dramatic decline, ranging from plain mediocrity with Heroes to the absolute atrocities that were Shadow in 06. Sonic the Hedgehog is in a weird place these days. The most recent game, Sonic Forces, was not received very well, and since then we've gone almost 4 years without a new Sonic release. But with all those terrible games coming out in recent years, some have forgotten that yes, Sonic was good. In fact, he was really good. And here today, I will go back and examine the highs, lows, and disappointments of the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. Let's start at the beginning. Okay, maybe not that beginning, let's just flash forward about 13 billion years. Alright, here we are. Sonic the Hedgehog 1. It's not fun. I'm sorry. Green Hill is the only stage in this game that I got any enjoyment out of. The rest of the game's zones are just absolute slogs to play through. They marketed Sonic as being able to go fast, but if you looked at this game's level design, I doubt you would be able to tell that was the central gimmick of the series. Other than Green Hill, these zones absolutely do not do Sonic's gameplay justice. When I first played Sonic 1 on the Sonic Classics collection on the DS, I was not able to get past Marble Zone. It was just too slow and boring for me. And as an 18-year-old man emulating the Mega Collection on Dolphin to get footage for this video, I still can't get past it. It's not fun. It's too slow and boring. Really putting that blast processing to use there, Sega.
The Sega Genesis has blast processing. Super Nintendo doesn't. So what's blast processing do?
But you know, it was the first game. It wasn't going to be a 10 out of 10 masterpiece out of the gate. The series was still trying to find its footing, so really I can't be too hard on it. All that matters to me is that Sonic Team learned from what they got right and what they did wrong and improved on the gameplay in the sequel. Then Sonic the Hedgehog came out, and oh my fucking god, this game is great. While you got Mario on the Super Nintendo doing this, you got Sonic on the Genesis doing this. Sure, Mario World is good, but compare the blocky stack environments of that game to the bright, dynamic, and expressive environments and characters in Sonic, and you really don't have much competition. Even as the die-hard Mario fanboy I am, I can admit in the 16-bit generation, Sonic was king. Sonic 2 was a great game, and I will say right here it is one of my favorite games of the 16-bit generation. And how do they follow up Sonic 2, one of the best 2D platformers of the 16-bit generation? The folks at Sonic Team knew they had to go big or go home. They set out to create the biggest Sonic game ever made at that point. A game that I personally would consider one of the best games ever made and one of Sonic Team's few undisputed masterpieces. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles. More zones, the introduction of Knuckles, even faster gameplay. This game was incredible, but when the game came out, what people got to experience was only half of Sonic Team's original vision. Because as most of you know, the full version of Sonic 3 was split into two separate cartridges. Sonic 3 was the first half of the game, and Sonic and Knuckles was the second half. And in order to play the full version of the game, you had to plug the Sonic 3 cartridge into the Sonic and Knuckles cartridge. Sega had forced Sonic Team to stick to a strict production deadline, all because Sega had a promotional deal to make Sonic 3 themed Happy Meal toys from McDonald's, so they needed to get the game out fast.
Where do the stars of Sega Sonic 3 go when the game's over?
Sonic? Are you guys in there?
Hey, here's a hint. They're at McDonald's in the $1.99 Sonic 3 Hamburger Happy Meal.
We are only on the third installment of the series, and already Sega is rushing unfinished games out the door. This is a great sign for the 27 years of absolute mediocrity to follow. In order to make the notion of buying two separate unfinished games in order to play Sonic 3 as it was meant to be palatable to the average gamer, Sega invented the idea of lock-on technology in order to make their own laziness seem like this new revolution in technology that will fundamentally change the way we play games. In reality, this was only used with Sonic and Knuckles. You could also plug in Sonic 2 in order to play as Knuckles in that game, or plug in Sonic 1 to play the Blue Sphere stages from Sonic 3, but that was the extent that the lock-on technology was actually used. Even though it was clearly an attempt by Sega to justify the purchase of two separate unfinished games, just like blast processing, people ate that shit up. It just goes to show that if you market something right, it doesn't matter how scummy your business practices are or how crappy your product is. People will buy it anyway. That's just how you play the game of capitalism. Cynicism aside, put together, Sonic 3 and Knuckles was a great game and showed that in spite of laziness and greed, Sonic Team was still capable of making good video games. Sonic was hitting his stride, and it seemed like Sega and Sonic were poised to dominate the games industry for years to come. The original trilogy of Sonic games in the Genesis proved themselves to be absolute smash hits, and because of that, Sega was able to single-handedly topple Nintendo's monopolistic stranglehold on the video game industry.
Genesis.
Does.
Genesis.
Does.
Genesis.
Does.
Genesis.
Does.
Does.
What Nintendo?
But then Nintendo completely flipped the table and changed the whole dynamic of the console war with the release of Donkey Kong Country. This game was revolutionary. By using pre-rendered 3D models as sprites, it created graphics of a quality never seen before on 16-bit hardware and gave the Super Nintendo a second wind, and Sega was on the defensive once again. At this point, it was 1994, and the 16-bit console generation was beginning to wind down, and a new age of 32 and 64-bit consoles was on the horizon. It did not help one bit that Sega basically forgot how to make Sonic games, and to make it even worse, Sega made some absolutely terrible business decisions at the start of the 5th generation which would send them into a death spiral. And with this new console generation, a new challenger entered the ring, which gave both Nintendo and Sega a run for their money. The Sony PlayStation was released in Japan in December 1994 and was scheduled for a North American release in September of the following year. At the same time, Sega was working on a new console of their own, a 32-bit machine that could run 3D games, the Sega Saturn, due for release in 1995. In the meantime, in an ill-calculated attempt to keep the Genesis relevant for the holiday season of 1994, Sega released the Genesis 32X, an add-on for the Sega Genesis that you would insert into the cartridge slot and it would turn the console into a 32-bit machine. The Genesis 32X was an absolute commercial flop, coming out just months before the expected launch of the Saturn and without a solid lineup of quality software to move units. The 32X was doomed to fail spectacularly the moment it was hastily conceived in a hotel room at the 1994 Consumer Electronics Show. I also don't think the 32X's weird, bizarre sexual marketing did it any favors. Who was the target demographic for the system? There wasn't a true traditional Sonic game on the 32X, but instead a spin-off starring Knuckles called Knuckles Chaotix. The game had a bizarre ring tether mechanic where you controlled two separate characters who were bound by a magical force. It did not make for a very enjoyable game. It was almost as if Sonic Team programmed the game bad as a joke. It is the first Sonic platformer that could truly be considered bad. But unfortunately for all the Sonic fans out there in the mid-1990s, this would be the closest thing they would get for a new Sonic platformer in the 5th generation, so enjoy! Now at this point, both the Saturn and the PlayStation had already been released in Japan and were both slated for a North American release in September of 1995, a week apart from each other. The Saturn was originally intended to be released on September 2nd, 1995, with the PlayStation due to be released just a week later on September 9th. However, Sega of Japan really wanted the Saturn to get a head start over the PlayStation when it launched stateside, so they urged Sega of America to move up the Saturn's release date.
We are 5 years away from entering the 21st century.
Introducing Sega Saturn.
At the inaugural E3 conference in 1995, Sega of America decided to shoot themselves in the face by releasing the Sega Saturn immediately. Sega had hoped that this would allow them to get a one-up on the PlayStation, but ultimately it ended up backfiring spectacularly. Retailers were furious as they were not informed of the surprise launch ahead of time, so they had no time to prepare, and some responded simply by refusing to sell the Saturn altogether. In addition, all the Saturn's launch titles were first-party Sega games, as not even the third-party developers were prepared for the surprise launch. All the third-party launch titles were still slated for a September release date. It did not help that the Saturn was already incredibly difficult to develop games for compared to the PlayStation. So not only with this insanely stupid stunt did Sega piss off the retailers who sold their games, they also pissed off the people who made their games. And to put the final nail in the Saturn's coffin, it retailed at $400. In the age of the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5, a $400 price tag doesn't sound too outlandish, but in 1995 it would prove to be Sega's downfall. Shortly after Sega's conference came Sony's, and at that conference it was one number that would completely destroy any hope Sega had of trying to revive its stillborn console.
$299.
$299. The 5th generation would ultimately end up with Sony absolutely steamrolling both Sega and Nintendo when it came to sales. The PlayStation was affordable, was easy to develop for, and had an incredible library of games. Sega, which had been on top of the world with Sonic and the Genesis, was now relegated to being a distant third in the console market. And the Saturn didn't even have any original main series Sonic games. All it had was a crappy port of Sonic 3D Blast and Sonic R. It is simply amazing how it would be possible for Sega to screw up this badly. It was the Saturn that single-handedly destroyed Sega as a console manufacturer, starting a long and painful decline which would ultimately end up with Sega bowing out of the console market altogether and just becoming a third-party developer in 2001. And yes, there was a Sonic game in development for the Saturn that ended up being cancelled. I am sure, if you are a degenerate Sonic fan like I am, you probably have heard of it. Sonic X-treme. I am sure most of you have seen and thrown out to this horrific gameplay footage that exists online. Who thought this fisheye camera was a good idea for a Sonic game? It looks so god-awful, I doubt if Extreme was finished it wouldn't have been able to save the Saturn. Honestly, I think it's for the best that Extreme is cancelled. After the complete and total miscarriage that was the Sega Saturn, Sega decided they had one last chance to redeem themselves as a console manufacturer, to make a console so amazing that it would surely turn things around and save Sega. Spoiler alert, it wouldn't, but this time it would actually have a new 3D Sonic game. I'm talking, of course, about the Sega Dreamcast. The Dreamcast launched in 1998 in Japan and 1999 in North America, and with it launched Sonic Adventure. And with this new game came a new design for Sonic. He was longer, lankier, and had green eyes. Honestly, perhaps it's just my mid-2000s nostalgia talking, but I really like modern Sonic's design. It's the Sonic I grew up with. I know a lot of die-hard Sonic fans prefer his classic design, but really, I just don't care. It doesn't help that classic Sonic's needless inclusion in Sonic Forces for nostalgia pandering has completely destroyed my goodwill for this iteration of Sonic, but that's a rant for later. Right now we're talking about Sonic Adventure. Sonic Adventure is an interesting game. It is without a doubt an incredibly ambitious project, probably too ambitious for its own good in a lot of ways. Originally during development, it was conceived as a Sonic the Hedgehog RPG, which can be seen in the final product's emphasis on story and characters. Yes, while the story in this game is inoffensive enough, the increased emphasis on story eventually leads to an age of Sonic games with unnecessarily melodramatic stories. Sonic's transition to 3D was rough. I think that goes without saying. Sonic Adventure can be at times incredibly glitchy and broken. Everybody knows about this one infamous section in Emerald Coat Sack 1 where the ground just sucks you in and drags Sonic into the depths of hell, never to be seen again. This was also the first time Sonic was fully voiced in a game, and the voice acting in Sonic Adventure is not the greatest.
Watch out! You're gonna crash! Ah!
Sonic is voiced by Ryan Drummond, and while I do really enjoy Drummond's take on the character, he ain't no Jason Griffith, but he is good. But as good of a voice actor as he is, it can't make up for the piss-poor direction all the voice actors were given. The line delivery is all kinds of stilted, and most of the actors aren't even that good.
Oh man, what happened to that emerald we just had?
I guess Eggman's got one of them, but the other one's safe. That guy must be desperate.
That means his 2 to our 1, and that's not good.
Tails is by far the worst. They decided it was a good idea to have an actual child voice Tails, and it did not make for the highest quality performance. Tails just ends up sounding like a kindergartner with a sinus infection reading off a script.
That was a test run using a new prototype propulsion system. It's got a few bugs to iron out.
I think they made a good call from Shadow the Hedgehog on, having Tails be voiced by an adult woman who is actually capable of acting. Knuckles has a weird voice too. He kind of sounds like an English voice actor from one of those Russian animated storytime content farms.
As far back as I can remember, I've been living here on this dark island, always guarding the Master Emerald from anything that could harm it. I don't know why I was given this job, why it was my fate. Destined to be here forever.
I do think it's funny how Big the Cat is voiced by the same guy who did Duke Nukem, though. That's not something you'd notice just by listening. Despite all its flaws, though, I don't think Sonic Adventure is that bad of a game. Sure, it's not my favorite Sonic game, but it isn't terrible. Ultimately, I never ended up beating the game because Big's fishing stages were too painful to sit through. It definitely has not aged well at all, but for what it is, it's alright. Sonic Adventure proved itself to be successful enough, though, to warrant a follow-up. Sonic Adventure 2. This is my favorite Sonic game of all time. Period. I will admit, like its immediate predecessor, this one hasn't aged too well either. The game is a tad glitchy, the camera can get a bit fucked up at times, the audio mixing of the cutscenes is absolutely atrocious. Sonic! Sonic! I can't hear you! Can you please speak up, man? The music is too loud! And the radar on the treasure hunting stage is absolutely broken, but this doesn't change the fact that I love it. Also, this game introduced Shadow the Hedgehog, one of the coolest characters ever made. If you don't think Shadow is cool, you need to stop lying to yourself. The game revolves around two rivaling storylines, the hero story starring Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, and the dark story featuring Shadow, Eggman, and Rouge. One of these stories are 3 different styles of gameplay. Sonic and Shadow have fun, fast-paced stages focused on speed. Tails and Eggman both ride mechs and have slower stages with shoot-'em-up mechanics and more precise platforming, and Knuckles and Rouge have treasure hunting stages where they must locate the shards of the Master Emerald or some other plot-centric MacGuffin. I know a lot of people don't like the mech and treasure hunting stages. Honestly, I don't really mind the mech stages all too much. Sure, they aren't as good as the speed stages, but they aren't bad. The treasure hunting stages, for the most part, aren't too painful either. The only treasure hunting stage I really could not stand was Meteor Head just because of how big it is, and it being more or less entirely vertically oriented made it an absolute pain in the ass to navigate. It took me well over 20 minutes to beat this stage on stream. The Sonic and Shadow stages really are, without a doubt, the best part of the whole package. What can I say, they're just badass. The game opens with the stage City Escape, which is by far the best modern Sonic stage in the entire franchise. I bet you could write an entire 20-minute video breaking down how good this one level is. You start by jumping out of a helicopter and snowboarding through the streets of San Francisco while trying to escape the military. Then once you gain full control of Sonic on foot, there are grind rails where you can do tricks to get the sweet Erics, and there's a whole host of secrets and alternate routes you can take. And it's capped off by one of the most iconic sequences in Sonic the Hedgehog history. A giant military truck chases Sonic through the streets, causing millions and millions of dollars of property damage in its wake. Not to mention the music in this stage. It's just so uplifting, so energetic, it sets the mood perfectly. It is far and away one of the best Sonic the Hedgehog stage themes. Music has always been a strong suit of the Sonic the Hedgehog series. Even if the games are absolute garbage, the soundtrack is always, with the exception of Sonic Warring Forces, an absolute banger. Even with the awful sound chip of the Genesis, they managed to make some of the most amazing game soundtracks of the 16-bit era, leaving even Nintendo's Koji Kondo in the dust in the banger department. I'm sorry Koji, I love your work man, but let's be honest here. For me personally, I think the greatest age of Sonic music was the Dreamcast butt rock era. I unironically crank Live and Learn whenever I'm home alone without anybody around to hear it. It's just awesome. But you can hardly swallow your fears and pain when you can't help but follow and put you right back where you came. At the time of its release, Sonic Adventure 2 was the highest rated Sonic game ever released, a distinction that continues to hold to this day. But even with the incredible success of the adventure games, it still wasn't enough to save the Dreamcast. While widely regarded now as ahead of its time and enjoying a successful launch in the US, when the PS2 dropped in 2000 it just couldn't compete. In 2001, just 2 years after its release in the United States, Sega discontinued the Dreamcast and formally withdrew from the console market, becoming a third-party developer. From here, the Sonic franchise would see a remarkable decline in quality, starting with Sonic Heroes, which ended up receiving mediocre reviews from critics and truly kicking off what has been known as the Dark Age of Sonic. This decline in quality would continue for the next several entries of the series. The next mainline Sonic game after Heroes was Shadow the Hedgehog, starring the titular Ultimate Lifeform as he tries to conquer the demons of his past. This game was received incredibly negatively. It had sloppy and unreliable controls. Shadow feels like he's on ice all the time and loses all his momentum when he jumps and does a homing attack. It had an incredibly poorly executed morality system that was intended to encourage repeat playthroughs, and the introduction of gunplay to the series. And then quite infamously, it introduced swearing to the Sonic series in an attempt to be a truly gritty and edgy experience.
Damn, not here.
Well, as gritty and edgy as a game about a cartoon hedgehog could be.
Where's that damn fourth Chaos Emerald?
Still, hearing Sonic say the word damn will never not be funny to me.
Creatures, damn, they got away! Leave it to me, I'll chase them down! Let's show the black creatures that we mean business.
Alright, whoa Sonic, tone it down man. I mean, what do you expect? The first thing you see in the entire game is a shot of Shadow loading a magazine into an assault rifle. Shadow, you fucking hedgehog. This game is just wild, man. But before we move on, there is really something that is bothering me about the Sonic the Hedgehog continuity that I need to talk about. Hey, Crimson Ender, Max here. In Sonic Adventure 2, Eggman blows up half the moon in order to demonstrate to humanity the power of the Eclipse Cannon, and the fate that the Earth would face should they not give in to his demands. But as can be clearly seen in the opening cutscene of Shadow, the moon is fully intact. In real life, the moon is tidally locked to the Earth, and as such exhibits a property known as synchronous rotation. It takes the moon about the same amount of time to make one full rotation about its axis as it does to make a full orbit of the Earth. Therefore, the same face of the moon is always visible to the Earth. So the moon should still visibly have a giant chunk missing from when Eggman blew it up. It just feels really weird that they would retcon it for Shadow, because the Eclipse Cannon and the Space Colony arc play a major role in Shadow's plot as well, with the Eclipse Cannon having been designed to destroy the Black Comet when it would return to Earth. But this is Sonic the Hedgehog after all, and continuity has never been one of the series' strong suits. Trying to make sense of the Sonic lore is about as futile as an endeavor as invading Russia during the wintertime. You just can't do it. But still, even Shadow the Hedgehog's new lows have nothing on what awaited the franchise the next year. The 15-year anniversary of Sonic was rough. In order to celebrate, Sega released 2 Sonic games, an incredibly shoddy port of the original Sonic the Hedgehog on Game Boy Advance, and a game that was supposed to reinvent the Sonic series entirely, Sonic 06. Everybody knows about 06 at this point. It is perhaps one of the most reviewed games on YouTube and is widely regarded as one of the worst games of all time. Forced by Sega to meet a strict release deadline, Sonic Team needed to rush this one out of the door, and you can clearly see the compromises they made to achieve that. 06 is a broken, buggy mess of a game. It has an awful, convoluted, and needlessly melodramatic story involving time travel and human hedgehog romances. There are giant, bland-looking hub worlds with absolutely nothing to do on them, and the game runs like ass on the 360 and PS3, with painfully long loading screens that take you out of the experience altogether. It goes without saying this game was panned by critics and fans alike, but I'm about to do something unthinkable. I'm going to say something positive about Sonic the Hedgehog 2006. Recently, a fan-made port called Project 06 has been making its rounds online, and it is what I played to get footage for this video because I was not about to bust out my Xbox 360 and buy a used copy of 06 for this video. As of right now, all of Sonic's action stages are playable in Project 06, and when the loading times are cut down and some of the bugs are squashed, you can see the makings of a good game here. If the game just had more time in development, it could very well be the masterpiece Sonic Team set out to make. I see 06 as one of gaming's biggest tragedies. You can see the ambition and soul and heart Sonic Team put into this game. You can tell they truly wanted to make something amazing, and honestly, that is refreshing. As of right now, the most recent game in the Sonic franchise was Sonic Forces, one of the most boring, uninspired, and soulless Sonic games ever to exist. Yes, while on a technical level, it goes without saying that Forces is a more sound and stable game, in my eyes, its absolute soulless mediocrity brings it down even lower than 06. 06 is an absolutely terrible game, but at least it has some semblance of soul. That behind this dumpster fire of a video game, there are developers who wanted to make something amazing, but because of Sega doing what Sega does best, making bad decisions, they simply weren't able to. Fuck you, Sega. But even still, even if the game was well made, I don't think they could have made the human hedgehog romance less weird. That was just a bad idea to begin with. There was a reason they ultimately ended up scrapping the idea when they considered giving Sonic a human girlfriend all the way back in Sonic 1.
Sonic, come back. To me. To us.
Anyway, after the catastrophe that was Sonic 06's launch, Sega did their best to correct course, and what came out of it was 2008 Sonic Unleashed. It was a definite improvement, but the inclusion of the Werehog definitely kept this game from truly being considered a masterpiece in the eyes of many. It was also the introduction of the modern boost formula of Sonic games, which has been the main gameplay style for the main series releases on console ever since. I know a lot of people don't like the boost formula, but really, I think if executed correctly and the level design is good, the boost formula can be absolutely thrilling and gratifying to master. The problem with the boost games is that Sega doesn't seem confident enough to base an entire game around the formula, and almost in every single boost game, with the exception of Colors, they included some sort of secondary gameplay style along with the boost formula. In Unleashed you got the Werehog, in Generations you have Classic Sonic, and in Forces you have both Classic Sonic and the custom avatar. I do feel in a lot of ways, games from Unleashed onwards overcorrect in some aspects. Gone are most of Sonic's friends, with the notable exception of Tails. Most of them are relegated to mere cameos, cutscenes, or in Unleashed in Colors, just absent altogether. Since Unleashed, the only playable characters that weren't a variation of Sonic were Shadow and the custom avatar in Forces. That's it. When recording footage, I could not get past the first main Werehog stage because it was just that boring. I can appreciate Unleashed though because it was incredibly polished for a Sonic game, and even with the Werehog bogging it down, you can feel that it still has soul. But if there's one thing about Unleashed that is worse than the Werehog's gameplay, it's the obnoxious fucking jazz music that plays every 5 seconds whenever an enemy comes on screen. I still have nightmares about this song. As I said about 5,000 words ago, the Wii port of Unleashed is where I got my start with the series. But I did not go full Sonic Maniac mode until the release of Sonic Colors in 2010. God damn, that was 11 years ago. I was in the 2nd grade when Sonic Colors came out, and I was obsessed. I started drawing Sonic fanfiction comics. I unironically ran like Sonic outside on the playground and during T-ball games. And I even dressed up as Sonic for Halloween one year, something which I hope there are no existent pictures of. Colors is a pretty good game. The Wisps are a solid gimmick, unlike the Werehog which completely broke the pace of the game. The Wisps felt more like power-ups than anything else, and I can appreciate that. It is the first and so far only Sonic Boost game where you play as regular modern Sonic the whole time. I do feel like the level design and over-reliance on 2D sections hampers the overall experience a bit going back to it, but overall, going back and playing it for this video on my legitimate hardware, I was surprised by how much I ended up enjoying myself playing it. Really, all that mattered at this point was whether Sega would improve on the boost gameplay already present in Colors, and I can say that they did. In 2011, to commemorate Sonic's 20th anniversary, Sonic Generations was released, and it's fantastic. This was before we have seen Green Hill come back in every Sonic game release, so it was actually cool and novel to see it come back in HD. Classic Sonic also feels good to play. He doesn't feel as good as the Genesis games, but they did the best they could in the Hedgehog engine. They also greatly improved on the modern Sonic level design, so even the 2D sections are fast and fun. Everybody agreed that this was the best Sonic game released in years, and with Colors and Generations releasing in a row, Sega had a good thing going. I wonder how they would continue to improve on the formula for the next Sonic Lost World. They really just stripped away everything good about Generations and followed up with a soulless Mario Galaxy clone. It was boring, I didn't like it, I couldn't be bothered to finish it. After Lost World released in 2013, the main series went quiet for a few years. In the meantime, we had the absolute disasters that were the Sonic Boom games. They were very bad, I don't know what to say. I never bothered to play them, and I don't think I was missing out on much. The TV show was pretty good, though. I watched most of the first season, it was pretty funny, and unlike most people, I really don't mind what Sonic Boom did to the characters. I thought the personalities were fitting. This is where we see Roger Craig Smith at his best in his role of Sonic, because they changed Sonic's personality to better fit with Smith's voice acting talents and style of line delivery. Maybe it's because the writing in the new Sonic games is absolutely horrendous, but I just don't like Roger Craig Smith as Sonic in the games. He's not awful or anything, but he just doesn't fit the character. And they didn't bother to rework Sonic's personality to better suit him like what they did when Jason Griffith took over.
Wrong, loser! The things that can't be defeated are heart, soul, and the bonds of friendship. 3 things you and your counterfeit cronies lack.
But then, in 2016, to commemorate the 25th anniversary, 2 new Sonic games were revealed. Sonic Mania and Project Sonic 2017. Later known as Sonic Forces, and for a while, it was exciting to be a Sonic fan again. Sonic Mania was to be developed by Christian Whitehead and his team, who had previously worked on the excellent mobile ports of Sonic 1, 2, and CD, and Forces was due to be the next big, groundbreaking main series Sonic game, developed by the same folks who did Colors and Generations. So how could it not be good? And then they showed classic Sonic in the reveal trailer, and that got me a little uneasy. Sonic Mania came out first, and it was really good, a 10 out of 10 masterpiece if I were to be so bold. It just felt amazing to have a good Sonic game come out again after Lost World and Boom. I do wish it wasn't so over-reliant on nostalgia, especially since zones like Green Hill and Chemical Plant were features in Generations as well. But the gameplay is so satisfying and the level design is so solid that I'm willing to look past that because the game is just that good. I cannot say the same thing for Sonic Forces though. Sonic Forces is just absolutely mediocre. It is basically Sonic the Hedgehog hallway simulator. Modern Sonic stages are short and boring. They more or less play themselves, and they really end before they get going. Most of the modern Sonic stages are less than 2 minutes long and are more or less straight shots to the goal. The custom avatar isn't necessarily a bad addition, and it doesn't really detract from the game. I just don't think the overall game design does it any favors. Besides, I just think it's really cool that they leaned into the cringe custom Sonic OC deal. Classic Sonic, though, was just a baffling addition. He was already in Generations and in Mania just 4 months prior, but they felt it necessary to include him in this game when there was literally no good reason for him to be there. It doesn't help that they made him control just as well as a leg condom. They could have ported the physics from Generations, but they decided that they would completely mess it up instead. They also decided to retcon Classic Sonic not to be a younger version of Sonic as was established in Generations, but as a Sonic from an alternate dimension. And that's just dumb. Classic Sonic is easily the worst part about this game. It does not help that once again they just rehashed old level themes from previous Sonic games. Green Hill and Chemical Plant are back again, despite having already been in Mania and Generations. Does this game not even have a single original idea to call its own? Forces also goes back to having a needlessly melodramatic plot. Forces involves Eggman and his new henchman Infinite defeating Sonic, and over the course of the next 6 months conquering the world while Sonic's friends form a sort of ragtag resistance. Doesn't sound like a bad idea for a Sonic story. It's kind of similar to the premise of the Saturday morning cartoon from the 90s, but it's just so poorly executed. Infinite is the worst Sonic character, and I'm saying that knowing that both Cream the Rabbit and Charmy the Bee exist. He sucks. He is obnoxious and edgy for the sake of being obnoxious and edgy, and the Phantom Ruby is the absolute worst Sonic MacGuffin. It is so poorly explained. Eggman uses it to create virtual realities and to create a fake virtual sun to drop on Sonic and his resistance to destroy them. But like, it is not the real sun and only a virtual reality projection. That completely eliminates any sort of stakes that could come from this scenario, and it's dissipated after one level. Infinite gets his ass beat one more time and fucks off to God knows where, and the Sonics and the Avatar defeat Eggman something but the power of friendship. Roll credits. That was 3 hours long. God! So thus far, the Sonic series has been concluded with absolute disappointing mediocrity, and since Forces we haven't had a new main series Sonic release, and with the new game not slated till 2022, this will have been the longest we've gone without a main series Sonic title ever. I've seen some leaks about it being an open world game called Sonic Rangers, but I don't believe that right now. I think most of the political events of the last year have proven that anonymous posts on 4chan aren't necessarily the most reputable source of information. Maybe I'm just in denial, but I really don't think an open world Sonic game sounds that fun. One of the best parts about Sonic games is how the level design rewards you for going fast and allows you to do cool tricks to gain speed. I don't think an open world would lend itself too well to Sonic-style gameplay. I just wish AAA developers would realize that not every game needs to have an open world to be good. Just because Breath of the Wild, Skyrim, and Witcher 3 have open worlds and are absolute masterpieces doesn't mean that every game needs to try and emulate that. I just really want Sega to make a good Sonic game. I hope they will actually take advantage of the 5-year development time and make something truly special and spectacular and make me proud to be a Sonic fan again. But their track record does not give me too much faith in their capabilities to make a good Sonic game. I mean, Forces had 4 years to be developed, and look at how much of a disappointment that game was. After all of this, I don't know how to wrap up this video into a nice, concise conclusion, but I do know that Sonic has had a lot of potential that Sega doesn't seem to know what to do with. Sega could absolutely make another good Sonic game if they tried. They've demonstrated that they could do it before. Sonic 2, 3, and Mania are absolute masterpieces, and Adventure 2, Colors, and Generations are also fantastic games that I like quite a bit. I love Sonic, and it makes me sad whenever a new game of his releases and it just isn't good. I'm cautiously optimistic about the next game, and I'm still excited to see what the Blue Blur will do next. But hey, at least we'll always have fan games. And to think, this wasn't even an exhaustive retrospective. I didn't even touch on the handheld games, the spin-offs, the TV shows, or the movie. But I figured it was best I cut myself off somewhere. This script is already well over 7,000 words and 22 pages long. I've had you here for far too long, and I think it's about time I stopped talking. Happy 30th anniversary, Sonic, and thank you for watching.
What the fuck is a Sonic?